Tá bom, tá live. What I want to do... We're finally live, by the way, which is awesome. So I'm going to just open the chat real quick. Here we go.
And they're running. You can see that too. Share that as well.
Yeah, so we live on X, YouTube, and Twitch.
Yeah, I don't do much video otherwise, so X is kind of the only one.
Oh, okay. You do have an X account. Yeah, we talked about on X. So.
Yeah, no, that's sure, but like YouTube and Twitch, not really. I mean, sure, I'll happily come on somebody else's thing, but not a regular thing that I do.
All right, so I'm gonna just open the chat and say hi to people real quick. I also need to literally tell everyone that there is something really big happening tomorrow, so I'm gonna make that
that's
too.
Gonna be fun.
Look at that! All right, some people here. Nice, 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 nice. W from Francisco. How you doing, Francisco? Jonathan, how you doing as well? What do I have to open now? I need to open Twitch as well. Chat, I have literally a lot of great news for you all before we dive into talking with the creator of Composer, which will be awesome. Before we do that, just type W sound if the sound is okay. We are warming up people a little bit because we have a very late start today, okay? And the reason it's because the microphone was not working as expected. It was totally my fault, but now we're good, okay? That being said, high quality recording happening right now, so I'm going to interview you, okay? I'm going to have a conversation with you, and this will be subject to post-production, meaning that, my brother and I will going to edit this out. So if you say anything, you want to, kind of rephrase it or just, cut it out, you can just do it. Chat, today I'm here with Niels, the creator of packages and composer, co-creator, right? Co-creator, and I'm very excited to be here with them today because I have so many questions to you, I'm going to be honest, that I don't even know where to start. I actually have one very interesting question. I'm pretty sure that everyone at home may have that question too, which is, when did you start with Composer? Like, why Composer became a thing in the PHP world? I mean, probably there was other package managers on other languages before, not in PHP, so can you explain a little bit of the story there, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure. Glad, first of all, that we finally managed to make this work. Get a chance to talk to you.
Thank you.
And I mean, I started working on Composer in 2011 together with Jordi. That's why I always say co-creator, because there's two of us that started the whole thing, and we kind of came from different perspectives. So I used to be the lead developer of PHPBB, the forum software, if you remember this.
PHPBB, chat. WPHPBB, okay, everyone.
The web was a different place back then. But the core idea was we need a plugin system for this instead of the what was at the time the normal way of modifying this forum software. It was just editing the files, and there was like all these text instructions, like how you edit something. I was like, okay, we should replace it with like an actual plugin system, and then you get to like, how do I install the plugins?
Right.
And so thinking about this, and at the same time, Symfony 2 got introduced, which is like all these components that today even Laravel is built on, and like that was like the very early part of it, like the first beta. And I went to one of these Symfony conferences, and that's where I ran into Jordi, who had been actually working on something similar to Symfony components as part of his agency work, and then eventually kind of realized, okay, it's going more in that direction, and switched over to that. And so he came more from the Symfony web agency side, but also needing a way to install, I think, bundles, they called them back then, where they still do, I guess. But yeah, it basically is the same problem, right? You have something that needs to get installed, downloaded from somewhere. I think the very first versions actually ship with like a shell script that just has a bunch of git clone commands to kind of get the stuff in there somehow. And so that's how we decided, hey, there's actually enough overlap here, we should just figure something out that helps us install these things. And at first it was in the Symfony context, and then soon after it was a bit like, has nothing to do with Symfony. It's like, it's just a PHP thing, right?
Like every single one of us type Composer update every now and then. So, chat, for those who just arrived, we have 50 people already, which is awesome. Today I'm here with the co-creator of packages and Composer. So every single time you guys are doing a Laravel new or a Symfony new equivalent, you are literally using Composer behind the scenes, which initially started with Composer V1 and then Composer V2. Is Composer V1 still like usable? Like if I were to use Composer V1?
Please don't. Like, just don't. People do for some reasons that I don't. I think there's probably a bunch of CI pipelines that people forgot exist and they're still running or something.
Very legacy stuff.
But it's both got like known security issues in some circumstances, and also it's just really, it's a problem from a operational perspective on packages, like packages.org actually no longer serves the data, so all you would get is like kind of stale old information.
Right.
Just don't use Composer.
Don't use Composer V1, chat, okay? Yeah. By the way, chat, again, today I'm here with the co-creator of packages and co-creator of Composer. If you guys have any questions to him, now it's the moment. By the way, Nizar, I don't have plans for, well, I do have plans for the API starter kit, but that's a Laravel thing probably happening around Laracon US. Imaguti, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat today. Moving forward a little bit to Composer. So we talked about the history of Composer and how it came out to be a thing, which is awesome. I want to ask you, like, Composer is written on PHP, right?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, first of all, back then it was like the idea is like, hey, we want to build something that installs plugins for some PHP software. Like, what's the runtime thing that we can rely on being available? Well, PHP.
PHP, 100%, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think initially there was some concern over that would be a problem, and I think it turned out pretty quickly that performance-wise this is just fine.
Yeah.
Composer 1 eventually did run into performance problems, but those weren't to do with it being implemented in PHP. PHP is actually super fast at this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think in a lot of benchmarks you can see that for like a special use case like these, PHP will outperform something like Python, for example.
Right.
And it's just worked really well. And in the end, now that we've got Composer 2 with all the improvements that we made there to, I guess the architecture allowed us to improve the performance, the one thing that makes it slow sometimes is the internet. You know, you're downloading files off the internet. Like, it doesn't really matter what language you write that in, you're still downloading data over the internet. Like, can't really do much about that one.
And without putting you on a spot, if Composer were to be written right now, in 2026, would you still use PHP for it?
Yeah, I would.
Okay, 100%.
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
I think both PHP is a great choice for this kind of thing, and at the same time, it does give us this great ability to just run wherever PHP developers are. And it makes it super easy for people to figure out plugins, like to get contributions from PHP developers. It's just great to stay within the ecosystem that it's trying to support. Like, why would you write this in a different language that the majority of the PHP developers then maybe can't contribute to?
So in terms of technology, we have PHP. Do we have Symfony console behind the scenes a little bit? Okay.
Yeah, we do. So I think, I mean, we try to limit dependencies of Composer itself pretty narrowly, so that you don't have too many things built into Composer that could either conflict with dependencies of individual plugins that people might work with, but also just generally, we have a very long LTS phase where we support things for many years. So I think even Symfony console, we end up with having patched versions that are supported longer than when Symfony console initially did. And so we like to have very direct relationships with the individual maintainers of everything that's actually a dependency of Composer, so that we do deeply understand what's in there and can kind of keep up to date on that.
Right. So Composer being written on PHP, and you would still written in PHP if you could, relying on Symfony console, is an open source package.
Yeah.
So I assume you just search Google Composer GitHub, and you'll find the source code of Composer, which is awesome. I want to ask you something. Were you aware of some of the potential security issues? So we've obviously seen, across the other ecosystems, especially JavaScript, Python, some of these security supply chain attacks. Okay. Were you aware that this would be potentially a thing even before being mainstream talk right now?
Yeah, I think we've been thinking about supply chain security for years and altogether, and I think especially the things that have been happening more recently in the last couple of weeks, months, where I think really there's a bit of a, you can maybe talk about the last 2 years in NPM PyPI.
Right.
Is something that we always knew was coming for PHP. There were a few things that helped us for a long time that eventually went away. So I think one of the strengths of the model that we have with Packages and Composer is that we don't allow people to push and publish packages to packages.org. The only way you publish a PHP package is by giving us the URL to your source repository, and then we actually get the code from there. Or typically right now, Composer will actually get just the URL to download through the GitHub API, in nearly all cases open source code on packages is on GitHub, directly from GitHub. And so you get a very direct link between what's in the source repository and what you're downloading as an end user. And a lot of the things over the last 2 years that happen on other ecosystems, I'll focus a bit on NPM PyPI because I know them a bit the best. They were all about people having their tokens stolen so that somebody could publish a malicious release to their NPM package, through their PyPI package. Now, that's not something that exists in PHP, right? Because people just give us the URL to the repo, so the only way that you could publish something is by getting access to the repo. And that used to be a much higher hurdle than getting access to NPM push tokens. except that that's changed, right? And so, like, on one side, that's because NPM and PyPI have both been pushing for OECD trusted publishing, built attestations that basically allow them to get the same level of direct link between source code and the artifact that you're actually installing that we already get from just directly using the source code. And so as they've been tightening this chain, they're kind of catching up to like where we are on this particular aspect.
Right.
And so suddenly anybody who wants to attack NPM and PyPI has the same hurdle as for Composer. And so now it's all about, hey, if I just get access to the repo, then I can attack all of them.
Right.
Including us, right? And so because of that, and we knew that that was going to eventually happen, there are things that we've been working on already for the last year, a bit over a year. That started, I think, out maybe a bit too slowly, and I think we're trying to really push out a lot of this stuff very quickly right now, but we can do that because we've been preparing for this for quite a while, right? Otherwise, this would be a struggle. So we've started with the transparency log last year already. That basically allowed us to, that's more like an investigative tool, but it can also be a preemptive one that allows you to track all these changes of cross packages. And it was a key part of how we now made releases immutable. So one of the parts of the previous attacks, I think the biggest one that people saw was Laravel Lang and intercom PHP.
That's the one people have been talking about, yeah.
I think intercom PHP was also quite interesting, which is like this SDK for the support chat widget that they have for PHP. And because that one was actually trying to turn the package into a Composer plugin. Now that is also a difference where I think we've put a better safety mechanism in place already. I think in Composer 2.1, like 5 years ago, where you have to actually actively allow a package to execute as a plugin. So unlike something like a post-install script in NPM that will just execute, and NPM is now coming around to this, where they introduced a new flag where you can say, hey, you have to actually say, is this thing allowed to do a post-install script that just on installation immediately executes code and attacks you?
It doesn't solve the problem of the autoload though, right? Because
autoload happens at a later stage, right? There's two steps, right? You've got the what happens at Composer runtime, and then you've got the what happens at runtime of the application. And Composer runtime is even more privileged, right? Because you want to, like, technically you should be able to run something like a Composer update, just get the files, not execute your application yet, but then be able to review, what did I install? Is this what I want to execute? Have some kind of local mechanism that does like static analysis, something. And if you have something that already executes while you're installing, that's a much higher privilege. And so that's kind of what npm post-install or something like that does, because it doesn't even wait until you execute the code. It happens while you're still installing. And that's the same thing you can do with the Composer plugin, except that we have this allow mechanism in there, which npm is also introducing now, so that you have to explicitly say, hey, only these scripts are actually allowed to be executed.
Yeah, they recently added it, yes.
Yeah, I think just last week.
Last week, yes. Some people are saying that you are tall, so he's not, well, he is probably tall, but there is a chair. The problem is a chair, so my chair is way lower than...
the chair is just making it very realistic, like, you know, when we stand next to each other, it'd be similar.
Okay, still on the topic of the security. By the way, I have recently published a few videos on my YouTube channel about security. A lot of them were popular just because people are concerned about security. So I have multiple things on that topic to ask you still. I kind of want to ask you something before I forget. Did you ever got concerned about get sued? In terms of, I know that MIT typically prevents, is against liability, right? So you technically...
I think that's already kind of a problem where people don't understand that the U.S. legal system doesn't apply worldwide, and like, you know, putting something in a license that says like no warranty doesn't actually work in most countries in the world because there's no such thing as no warranty.
Exactly. So I'm going to be honest, like as an open source developer, people probably are using my shit at home, like, you know, Collision, Parallel Pint, and many other open source packages. It does scare me a little bit, the fact that some company around the world can sue me with a bunch of millions to lawyers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't have money for lawyers. They probably have very good lawyers, even though people may say, oh, you have MIT, you are protected. Well, I don't know, you know?
I mean, I think there's like, why would anybody do that? I think you're just hurting yourself. I don't think anybody would go after the platform that they all rely on, that they're getting for free, which is kind of the current situation.
That's the thing. It's enough that one of those people that get hacked with a bunch of millions, just one of them, decides, I'm going to sue Nuno through the bones, and it's enough to just screw my life.
I mean, I think similarly here, it is a very clear-cut case that we are not responsible for what dependencies you install through us. Like, we're not uploading them to the system. We're clearly a platform that is simply, and we do provide the mechanisms and tools and recommendations on what you should be doing. Like, every time anybody talks to us, like, we recommend you review a log file before you execute code. Like, you do a composer update, you review the log file, like what has actually changed in there, and then you run your application. We provide tooling for this, like with private packages. You have like an update review tool so that people actually review log files. So like, it's not like, all we can do is provide the tooling, and in the end, like if you use it correctly is kind of something that you have to work on.
Right. So that was one of the many things I wanted to ask you about. But the second thing is, so I honestly think like we are facing something really dangerous in some way, like people being able to exploit your application by simply typing a composer update. We obviously, you are putting a lot of things in place, and I appreciate you guys being so mindful about that.
Yeah, but it's possible,
I mean,
right?
that is, I'm 100% that is probably other package managers that are not putting these measures in place as fast as you guys are. So I appreciate your work on that one. So thank you for that, and I think everyone in the chat should say thanks to the composer dude. Okay,
thanks.
But one of the things I think you guys should consider is the nuclear option for this. Okay, and the nuclear option is about adding multi-factor authentication into the release step. Okay, so Nuno is the maintainer of one Laravel package. And I decide, all right, so I'm going to tag a release. Nuno or the hacker decides to do that. Let's assume the hacker got control over a token of mine and decides to tag a release in my behalf. I think I should receive an email saying the following. You just tag the release on GitHub. Do you wish to actually distribute it on packages? And packages will tell me, and I'm going to say, yes, I do. No. And packages will say, well, that's awesome, but now give me your two-factor authentication. So the hacker would have to hack literally 3 things of mine to be able to tag a release. No. Hack my GitHub account, hack my email account, and hack my mobile device, which I think like is a nuclear option. So I want to know from you, like, what do you think about this? But also, like, if you don't think it's a good idea, why? Yeah.
So I mean, I think we talked about this on Twitter a bit already.
A little bit.
There's like a little thread. But so basically, this is something that NPM has already introduced, right? So on NPM, this exists today. It's called staged releases.
Yeah.
And
just to clarify, I'm proposing it not as an opt-in, as something you would not even opt out. It's a requirement.
Yeah. Let me, anyway. Staged releases is something that already exists. And I mean, we already posted on our blog post that we are going to offer this as an option. Now, there are things that make this a little more complicated because you're thinking about a situation where you are the one maintainer. If you are, I don't know, you run the Google Cloud SDK because you do like Google Cloud. You don't want to have like one individual person, right? Like that's like responsible for saying yes to this. And so you need more mechanisms to actually distribute this. Like how do you handle this with multiple people? And there's good ways of doing that. And the next one is if you are, let's say Laravel, right? And you do, or like maybe, I think maybe Symfony is a better example because you just have like more individual smaller packages. Let's say they want to do a release, and then you would have like 100 times like your MFA. Probably not. You want to do that like once and like publish a bunch of them together.
Right.
And so there's just like lots of individual bits and pieces, like in terms of UI and developer experience that we have to build first to actually enable this, because like it might work fine for like one niche use case, but then for a lot of the actual real world cases, there's a lot more complicated than just like, oh, we just do like these 3 steps and we're done. But that's also why you can't easily just, in the current way that you were describing this, if I just make this mandatory, then like Symfony is just like, okay, how do we even still release anything? So we can't do that today. We have to figure out all these other things first. And then generally, I think it's also, I think our approach is usually to do like a multi-tiered approach where we just do different levels depending on how critical you are. So if you build a little package that has like all of 2 users, then we're not going to force you to go through that. But we do start increasing security measures if you have more of an install base. So for example, for today, on packages.org, if you want to actually transfer a package to a different repository or a different Git hoster, then if you have more than 50,000 installs, I don't know if the number is right on the top of my head, but I think about there, then you actually have to go through a manual verification process with us. Like you can't just do that through like the UI. But if you're only a couple hundred people, if you have ever installed your package, then you're okay to do that still. And so I think similarly, we're not going to make this a requirement for everybody all the time, everywhere, but it is likely going to eventually be a requirement for some types of packages, some more critical parts of the ecosystems.
Yeah, the ones. Okay, that makes sense. Well, that's why he's the creator of Composer, not me. Because probably have. There's a lot of things to think about, like especially when we maintain packages that are used across the world. Laravel is one example. Like we take in consideration literally every single little edge case.
And you have to think about another part of this here, which is the cost to us. Because like MFA 100%. Already today is a major headache for support. Like the amount of support cases where people manage to lose their backup codes and they want their MFA reset, and you're like, well, that's not supposed to happen because obviously this is the attack here, and so and that's always a very elaborate, difficult support process, right? And so if you make MFA a requirement, that means you just increase your support burden, and then how do I pay for the people to do that support on a free service, right? And that's 100%. Like so far, private packages sort of manages to cover this, but I mean, I think we're expecting to spend like at least $1 million this year on packages.org, and would like to have more like 1.3 to 1.5. We actually want to quickly implement all of this work, as we really just need extra engineers who want to do it at that pace, and then we end up with more support. And like, where does the financing for that come from? And 100%. So we really lack the amount of like sponsors, like commercial help to do that.
And I want to know more about that. So before we jump into the sponsor situation, Eduardo Santos is saying, thanks, Composer. We also have Matthew, which is saying, good question. What is your favorite Composer feature that most people don't know? Or don't use?
Yeah, I think maybe bump, a Composer bump is a command.
I use it all the time.
But also, like, you can do this as an option on update now, right? Like, so every update you can bump all your dependencies at the same time. I think
there is one little request I have there, and we don't have to expand too much on it, but I've noticed that bump doesn't actually work when you have an onion. For example, you support, you know what I mean exactly?
Yeah.
So just for people at home, basically if I require Symfony 3 and Symfony 4, the bump will bump only the 4 version. I would expect naturally to bump both the 3 and the 4 to the latest patch of each one of them.
The way that bump works today, it's not designed for that use case, because the idea is you use bump only on applications and not on libraries. Like you want to use bump on an application where you have one specific dependency version, because that is what you're using, and then you like on your application you keep bumping this.
Right.
It's not really built for libraries that want to have certain minimum requirements, because that gets a lot more complicated.
Correct.
You have these like alternatives, and there's actually more complex setup some people have, where this basic idea of just, hey, I never want to do an unintentional downgrade is not something we really consider a thing for libraries, because I think there's often a lot more considerate, like what dependencies you want to potentially work with as a library. But so yeah, I think the bump command today really just only use that on applications.
So shout out to Composer Bump, okay, chat? So I wanted to just, if you could elaborate quickly on the on supporting packages and supporting Composer. Like if I'm a big company doing millions of dollars, and I want to throw a few of them to Composer or packages, how do I do that?
Right. Just email sponsoring@packages.org. We'll set something up.
Okay.
And we're going to actually organize. We're trying to currently reorganize how we're handling this, because we've had a couple sponsors over the years already. Mostly in terms of infrastructure, but our major cost is not the infrastructure, but the people that actually provide the support, that actually look after the infrastructure, that do like 24/7 ops.
Right.
We're running a service. Like, it's not like people expect us to be up and available at all times of the day. And so what we really need is actual financial support just to pay salaries. And we do have some sponsors on that already. I think most recently Aikido really jumped in and helped a bit with that. That was kind of nice of them. And then that made us realize I think we should reorganize this. So later this month in June, we're going to relaunch our sponsorship page. There's going to be new tiers that you can sign up for.
Nice.
And so yeah, if you are a large company interested in helping us finance all of the supply chain security work, then really, email us, get in touch. We'll set up a contract. We'll get something going, and you'll be part of this launch as well.
Nice. Out of curiosity, do you have GitHub sponsors?
We do.
Okay.
It does not make up for a significant amount of money that would let us run any of this, because I also very much care about this being financed through the large businesses making huge amounts of profit with PHP technology.
You don't
really want the individual developer to have to care about this. Like, it's not their responsibility.
That's typically what happens to me when my GitHub sponsors is like, I have a couple dozens of people donating $5, and then comes a company with a couple of thousands, and you just
I mean, it's super nice if the people giving their $5, but I'm sure that they have better things to do in their lives with their $5.
Yeah, exactly.
And at the same time,
like
if there is a company,
if
there is a company making millions in profit off of PHP technology, then maybe they should, participate in actually making the infrastructure work.
What keeps you occupied right now? So you're obviously, dedicating a bunch of time to packages, and is that what keeps you occupied all day? Is that what you do full time at the minute?
Nope. This is my full-time job. Has been since 2018.
Wow.
And so all I work on is Composer packages, private packages, these kinds of programs. And we're a 9-person company at this point. So there's a bit of a managerial part of this as well.
Of course, yeah. Are you a web developer yourself in the sense that you still build web apps, or you don't do it that often?
I definitely don't do it as often anymore as I used to. I mean, I still occasionally do the little thing just for myself or something. For sure. There's always that.
That little thing. If you were to build an app right now, which stack would you choose?
There's two things. So one is if I just want to get something done really quickly, I'll usually use what I know best, and then we're probably back to just doing something with PHP, Symfony UX. I kind of like this idea of doing a lot in PHP,
Symfony, and Symfony UX, and I assume Symfony UX is a tweak kind of thing.
So Symfony UX is kind of the hotwire thing for PHP. So it's a bit more I guess Livewire. Yeah, exactly. So there's a Symfony thing for this as well.
Right.
So use Turbo Stimulus and so on, just because I'm just very much hey, let's just do everything on the server kind of person. And I don't do a lot of hey, let's build this in Vue or React, but that's personal preference, right? And on the flip side, if I do something personal for myself that I don't really care about that much and having it right now, then it's more I would probably randomly roll the dice and try something new just to kind of see where that goes.
So PHP 8.5, Symfony UX. How about code editor for all of this? Which code editor do you use often? Just be careful. We are literally at JetBrains office, so you want to be nice.
No, I do use PHP Storm still to a degree. Nice. But these days it's probably more Codex, Claudex.
Yeah, we're going to do that.
Cloud Code, and then isn't that more of my editor than the actual? I still have the IDE to look at stuff.
So you said Codex.
Sure.
And you use Codex CLI, I assume, as well?
I do that once in a while. I mostly use Cloud Code right now.
Right.
It's a funny thing where I follow a lot of the conversations around this, and then people go oh no, but the recent GPT models are so much better than, and then it's but I'm still super happy with some of the things that are produced here.
Correct.
And it's kind of it depends so much on the use cases, but I do try to at least switch things around a bit to keep an eye or understanding of what's going on.
A lot of questions, a lot of love by Composer, by the way. Mike is asking, are you working also with other projects, or Composer is your main job? So Composer is his main job. You just answered that already.
I think maybe we should clarify, private packages is my main job, right? Packages.com is the paid service.
Correct.
And then as a part of that, we can finance working on the Composer project. Jordi is mostly doing organizing the maintenance there. I do still participate in that, and there's a couple hours here and there that I just directly work on Composer. I do a lot more let's work on the specking out how this feature should work, and let's figure out the the behavior for certain options, and what's the developer experience. I guess it's a bit more product management for Composer is a bit what I'm mostly involved with on that side. And then
So just in 10 seconds if you can.
Yep.
I am Nuno, I have a product. Why would I ever consider private packages?
Well, because you care about your supply chain within the whole company being secure. So if you're a single developer, then it's mostly about if you're using any third-party packages of a third-party Composer repositories, and you don't want your deploy to fail when some random third-party servers are down, so you want to have a mirror copy of all of your dependencies. But you also, the bigger use cases are really for teams of people. So for example, the new controls that we have in Composer that let you, protect you from malware, they work great if you have a current version of Composer and if you configure it correctly, or the default options are there. But you can turn them off, right? Because a Composer CLI tool, you have the options to disable some of these features, or the malware blocking. But if, as a business, you probably want to make sure that these rules apply to all of your employees, and they can't just override them without having a conversation about it first.
Right.
And so that's the kind of thing that private packages enables, where you can have organization-wide security controls, where you have a central place for the entire company that all your packages are in, even the open source dependencies, where you can review with usage tracking, where do my packages actually get used and which applications are they being used. And then we do things like update review that I mentioned earlier that helps you actually review changes before you deploy them anywhere. Or Conductor is still work in progress, basically replacing for Dependabot or RenovateBot to actually keep your projects updated automatically. And so this is all integrated today. Yeah, private packages Conductor is the tool.
Interesting. Okay. So a little bit back to the topic of what you use right now. So you mentioned Codex and Codex CLI is your coding model, let's call it that way. You mentioned as well that you don't often go back to the code editor like you used to, just because these models are becoming indeed like so good, right? I want to ask you, like, in terms of operating system, what do you use?
Kubuntu. So I use a
what
KDE on Ubuntu Linux.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ubuntu, interesting. Okay. We have seen a lot of, Omarchi and these new approaches of using Linux in their laptops. So why Kubuntu, by the way?
I've been doing that for 15, 16 years. It works really well for me. System. Very happy with it. It's just, I think I got to this point where I'm like, okay, this works for me. And it's stable and doesn't break all the time anymore. And I'm just like, I'll just happy. Keep using this, and I'm happy where I am. Yeah.
Happy Kubuntu user. Okay. All right. So one last question I have for you: like, if you have to deploy a website, where do you deploy it?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I don't think there's a general answer. Like, it really depends on what I have. I still have my little random self, my
droplet.
No. It's an actual machine that's like hosted somewhere.
Wait, what?
That I share with a friend that I run my own mail server on and stuff like that. But then at the same time, we do a lot of AWS, and I really love just the flexibility of kind of just having everything in there through APIs using Terraform or something like that.
Oh,
and so
okay.
and then anywhere in between.
Dude,
that's really just depends.
Honestly, I have asked a lot of people what they use for deployments, but answering, no, I just have my own machine at home.
Yeah, for a little of my own thing, it's just no, it's not at home. It's in a data center, right? But I have an actual box.
Okay.
And there's virtual, it's like a hypervisor, and then we have our own hypervisor managing that, and some virtual machines on there, so I can use those for something.
Chad, for those who are asking where we are at the minute, so we are at JetBrains office, and tomorrow will be the PHPverse event. And to let you know what is PHPverse, is basically a day to celebrate PHP and celebrating the birthday of PHP as well, which is 31 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And it will be an awesome day. I will be the host together with Brent Rose from JetBrains. We are going to have amazing speakers, including Niels from the Composer team. I will be here literally all day tomorrow, okay? The event is starting at 1 p.m. on PHP Annotated channel, YouTube channel. And you guys need to stay there all day because we're going to raffle elephants and everything. It will be an awesome day. There will be a Discord channel where you guys can interact directly with the speakers, but also with myself. Yep. And after the event happening at 6:30, we are going to do a live stream, okay? The live stream will be fantastic, so we literally are going to be in real life on the after event, meaning that we are going to grab the phone and be all around the JetBrains office. I'm going to make you a tour as well. There will be people having food, having drinks, amazing speakers again. Niels will be there. Elizabeth from the PHP Foundation will be there as well. Ashley as well. So all of the speakers from the PHPverse event will be equally there. And finally, what else I have to say? This will last for 3-4 hours as well. Will be absolutely awesome, and I count you guys to be there as well. 1 p.m. which time zone? That's a very good question. So
Central European Summertime, but there's the website has a bunch of other time zones listed too.
Exactly. Just Google PHPverse and go there because they have literally all the timings and on the various time zones, I assume. One question from Eduardo. Not a question, just an acknowledgement that he's using Ubuntu for almost 20 years now, and it's super nice. Mike is saying that KDE is nice, and Keyber is saying KDE for the win as well.
Nice.
So a lot of love by KDE, which is awesome. Tomorrow we are going to be in real life here at JetBrains office, so I count you guys to come to the live stream. Meanwhile, I'm going to create the event, counting on all of you to be here with us tomorrow. That being said, I think it's with you is everything. So, dude, appreciate all of the chat here with us. Love Composer, love packages, and appreciate everything you do. I think we have a very, kind of a very cool PHP ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it's really
we
cool.
literally hang with each other all of us pretty much 3 times a year almost. I've been with you at Laracons quite often recently.
There's enough community events that you see running into some of the people, and it's always a
exactly
great experience.
And something I've noticing there is some folks already that I've been running in conferences for 10 years already. You know what I mean?
There are definitely people that have been seeing on and off for 20 years plus, and they still show up.
They were singles, now they are married, they have kids, and life continues, and suddenly you know these people for 10 years already, and it's whoa,
Yeah. I read this really fun blog post by Daniel Stenberg, who wrote Curl the other day, who made this thing about like, hey, you know, like at some point I got married, I had kids, then the kids moved out. The one thing that was always there was Curl. It's kind of funny.
Dude, thank you so much for being here with me. Tomorrow we have a little bit more time to chat. Now we are going to a speaker's dinner.
Yep.
Which will be fantastic. And chat, counting on you guys to be here tomorrow. We are going to do a small test around the office to see if the gimbal is working as expected and see if everything is okay. But with you, it's everything. Cool. Thank you, dude.
See you
at dinner time, okay?
Yep.
So I think we just grab the phone and we just walk a little bit here to make sure everything is like just literally perfect and top notch for tomorrow, okay? Just by the way, chat, let me know on the comments below if everything is okay. But we'll be tomorrow at 1 p.m. The goal is that we are literally walking through the entire JetBrains office tomorrow, okay? So I will show you literally everything. We're going to speak with people as well. So that's the plan. Let me know in the chat how things are, but things should be good. So in case you don't know, this is JetBrains office. As you can see, like, it just looks badass and awesome. There is like literally this table of pool here, just this nice view. You guys want to see the view? Come here, just show the view, which is awesome. By the way, say W brother if you guys are enjoying literally being here with me and him, by the way, okay? Oh, it's raining a little bit, though. Nice view, don't you think, chat? But yeah, that's the goal for tomorrow. We are going to hang out during the entire event. We are going to meet people, be with people as well, okay? So everyone from the PHPverse event will be there, and we'll be absolutely awesome. Gimbal working fine, very stable and nice. I know, dude. It's just nice. W Gimbal, oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah, this is JetBrains office. Can we just acknowledge like how cool this is? Like I would work here all day if I could. Okay, nice to be honest. I know, it's awesome. Yeah, it's working nice. We still have some things to figure it out though. I think the sound is okay, but it could be a little bit better. But yeah, that's it. I think I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow at 1 p.m. for PHPverse, counting you guys on, but then also at 6:30 for the actual event, okay? All right, chat. I'm going to end the stream. Love you all, okay? And see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.